All right, how's it going, guys? This is another video for Gun and Garden Guys, and today I want to talk about the most important thing about firearms, and that is firearm safety. Uh, this should be something that everyone should be taught. This should be kind of universal and taught everywhere, but it's not. So I'm going to kind of do a video to maybe help some people get a little bit better idea about how to use and hold and operate a firearm safely. So for this video, I have this yellow inert gun. This is a yellow, basically plastic fake version of a Glock that we're going to use just to show some things. All right, so there are basically, gun safety is not super complicated. It's just about being constant and consistent and always aware of the what is called the cardinal rules for gun safety. So the first rule, most important, treat all guns as if they are loaded. Okay? Treat which guns? All guns as if they are loaded. Common response when there's an accidental shooting, I didn't know it was loaded. Well, if we follow the first rule of firearm safety, that shouldn't be a factor. So if I have this gun, now this gun is not a real gun, so it can't actually be loaded. I'm going, oh, it's not loaded, and I'm just playing with it and pulling the trigger and things like that. Well, what if it is? What if you accidentally fire it? So treat all guns as if they are loaded. All right, cardinal rule number two, is to ensure you are always keeping guns pointed in a safe direction. So this is a fake gun, so look, right? That doesn't look too safe, right? I'm pointing it at you. All right, or I'm like, oh, look, what's this on my barrel? All right, that's not a safe direction. And hey, just talking and pointing it all over the place. Okay, keep guns pointed in a safe direction. Always, always, always pointed in a safe direction. Even if you don't pull the trigger, what if there's a mechanical failure? Gun could go off. What if you trip, hit the gun, accidentally hit the trigger? So always, 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 always keep guns pointed in a safe direction. All right, the third rule is what we call trigger discipline. So when you're holding a firearm, keep your finger, see my finger, my trigger finger, keep it straight and off of the trigger. Not just off the trigger, but straight, outside of the trigger guard, off the trigger. Why? Well, if it's straight and off the trigger, can I pull the trigger? No. All right? But it's not on the trigger right here, right? Is that safe? No. What happens if something scares me and I startle? All right? Bang. So straighten off the trigger, which means before you can actually fire the gun, I have to consciously think, move my finger into the trigger guard, put it on the trigger, squeeze. You cannot fire it by accident if your finger is straight and off the trigger. All right, and the last cardinal rule for firearm safety: always be sure of your target and what is beyond it. Okay, so if you do use a gun to shoot something, using my inert gun again, you're hunting in the woods, you think it's a deer, but you're not completely sure. You point, you fire, and it wasn't a deer. It was a horse or a human. Be sure of your target. All right. Also hunting, right? You shoot. Bullet goes through the target. Well, what's behind the target? If you don't know, you shouldn't shoot. Okay. Same thing in a self-defense situation. Someone is in your house. You get scared. You grab a gun because you're scared to defend yourself. You go looking around the house. Who's that? Who's that? You see someone. You get scared. Oh, bang. And it's your adult kid that just came home for the weekend. So you always want to be sure of your target. Whatever it is that you're shooting at, you want to be sure of what it is or who it is if it's the case of a self-defense situation, and always want to be sure of what's behind it or beyond it. Where's that bullet going to go if one, you miss, or two, it goes through your target? Where's it going? What's it going to hit? Or who's it going to hit? That has to be something. So these rules are not complicated, but they take constant awareness. We must always be remembering, hey, just because I don't think it's loaded, or even if I checked it and I know it's not loaded, we should still treat it as if it is loaded. Keep it in a safe direction. Always, always, always. While you're moving around, while you're talking, while you're handling the gun, while you're at the range, always keep it pointed in a safe direction. Trigger discipline. Make sure your finger is straight outside of the trigger guard, off the trigger. And when you do actually fire the firearm, make sure that what you're shooting at is what you're intending to shoot at, and make sure that it is safe, that there's nothing behind or beyond that target that it could hit and cause some problems. All right. So I think one of the main things with firearm safety that needs to be kind of visually with a real gun, not an inert gun, loading and unloading a handgun can be dangerous. There's been incidents where people have accidentally shot themselves, not being safe. So I've actually got this 1911. Then I'm going to show you loading and unloading. So this is a 1911 model. It's a 45. And just to show you, all right, you can see it is clear. There's no bullet in there. So for loading and unloading, I'm going to use what is called a snap cap. So this is a fake bullet, basically. It cannot fire. It's plastic, and it's meant for training purposes. So one thing with firearms, and if you're following the 4 cardinal rules, you're going to do this anyway, is keeping it in a safe direction while you're loading and unloading it, especially guns like this. This is an older style of 1911, and it can, small chance that when you're loading and unloading it, it could fire. So when I'm loading it, all right, magazine goes in. Make sure it's clicking. Keeping it pointed in a safe direction. I'm pointing it, you can't see, but I'm pointing it at my kitchen floor. And I'm going to pull it to the rear and let it slide forward. And that's why you have to keep it pointed in a safe direction. You heard that slam. It needs to do that to load the bullet properly. But with some pistols that don't have modern safety features, when it slams closed, there is a very, very, very small chance it could fire. So you don't want that to happen, and if it does happen, you want to make sure it's pointed in a safe direction. Unloading it is more dangerous. I have personally been in situations where I've, not anyone I directly knew, but soldiers that were deployed with me have been shot by accident by improperly unloading a firearm. So the key to unloading a firearm, so you have your magazine, that comes out first. Okay, first, not later. Then I slide to the rear, ejecting the bullet that is in the chamber. Okay, I do not stop with that point though. What I want to do is I want to look and visually inspect the chamber to ensure that I have properly unloaded the firearm before I can then store it. All right, so that's a few basics. I want to cover a few more little safety rules. These are not the cardinal rules, but these are just what we would call good practice. Number one, if you have firearms in the house, access to those firearms. Who can get to them? If there are small kids in your house, or even if you have grandkids or smaller nieces and nephews, they need to be locked away from smaller kids. In preferably a safe or a locked room. Another thing that I did when my kids were smaller, because we did have self-defense pistol available in our vehicle, I got a revolver with a very heavy trigger. So going back to my inert gun, I like a trigger that's pretty easy to pull, not like super light, but reasonably light. But I put safety first, and I got a firearm with a very heavy trigger that was long. My children could not physically have shot the gun if they wanted to, because the trigger pull was heavier than they could pull. while they were little. Okay, so that's just a minor safety tip that I used when they were younger. But I would say if you have older kids in the house, the most important and best practice, in my opinion, is to just ensure that everyone in your house has had safety training. Like I said, these rules are not super complicated. They just need to be constantly used and applied. It didn't take very long to explain them. So if you have a firearm, everyone in the house should have safety training on firearms. They should know how to, within the age, and it doesn't take a very old kid before you can figure it out. So you're obviously 2-year-old can't figure out gun safety, but you'd be surprised if 5 or 6-year-old can. So they can be taught firearm safety and these cardinal rules to ensure that they know these things are dangerous. They're not toys. Video games and TV shows make guns look cool and like toys, and that is not the real world. Okay, a few other things to remember for safety. Make sure that the firearm you're using is in good working order. You don't want to try to fire a gun that's clogged full of gunk and rust or mud, and that has firing pin springs and trigger springs and all that in bad order. That's asking for a disaster. Another thing I look for, actually, and this is going before you even get to that point, is purchasing guns. When I purchase a firearm, I try to purchase firearms that have good safety features on them already. The main one I look for is some type of firing pin block that prevents the firing pin from moving forward unless the trigger is pulled. So I think that is an essential safety device on a firearm you're going to carry on a regular basis or use on a regular basis. You also want to make sure you're using the correct ammo. So I have this ammo. This is my 45 ammo for my 1911. I don't want to accidentally put 40 Smith & Wesson in my 1911, and I don't want to accidentally put 9mm. You want to make sure you're using the correct ammo. There's also 45 Super, which looks exactly like 45 Auto, but is a lot higher pressure and can't be used in a 45 Auto. So you want to make sure you're using the correct ammo for the firearm you're using. While I'm on the topic of ammo, the last point I want to make is do not use ammo that has been damaged and is corroded, because that can be a disaster. If ammo is damaged, smashed, especially if it's smashed to where the bullet is pushed further into the case, that can cause your gun literally to explode. So you do not want to use ammo that has been damaged or corroded. I know ammo is expensive, and you're like, oh, but I paid, this was $1 something a bullet. Yes, and the gun blowing up on you will cost you the price of the gun and the price of the medical bills. So it's better to take that $1.50 bullet that you didn't want to waste and throw it in the trash if it's damaged or corroded, instead of risking hurting yourself or others and damaging your firearm as well. So, just to end, recap, cardinal rules of firearm safety. Treat all guns as if they are loaded. Always keep guns pointed in a safe direction. Keep your finger straight and off of the trigger until you are ready to fire. And last, always be sure of your target and what is beyond. All right, you guys enjoy your freedom. You enjoy the fun that comes from owning firearms, but do it in a manner that is safe.